Hey everybody, I'm Amanda with DevExpress, and welcome to our final webinar for launch week 15.1. Today's webinar, What's New for DevExtreme, presented by DevExpress Web Program Manager Mehul and Technical Evangelist Don Wibier. Join Mehul and Don as they review the newest products and features shipping inside DevExtreme 15.1, including our new HTML5 PivotGrid and HTML5 Scheduler Calendar widgets. All right, thank you so much for joining us. I will now hand things over to Mehul and Don.
Thanks very much, Amanda, and welcome everybody to What's New in version 15.1 for DevExtreme. I'm Mehul, and my colleague Don and myself will be presenting everything that's in 15.1. Now, before we dive in, and there's a lot to show, so I'll go quickly as will Don. I want to mention real quickly, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with DevExtreme, so I'll just give you a quick overview. DevExtreme is our client-side library. So for those of you who've never seen it, it is not just a client-side library. It includes a SPA framework for building mobile apps that you can actually deploy in the App Store. But it's much more than that now, and especially in this release, we've done a lot of work to improve the desktop website story, because a lot of customers, for example, a lot of our ASP.NET customers have been asking, hey, we're doing a lot more client-side development, and we would love to see you bring those powerful controls over to client-side HTML5 and just make them widgetized. So, even though we have a SPA framework, you don't even need to use a SPA framework. You can use them just as UI widgets. And I believe, especially with this release, you're going to want to take a look at considering to integrate DevExtreme into whatever you're using today, whether it's Angular, Bootstrap, and so forth. So let me tell you that story now. And today we're going to start by jumping into the new widgets. We've got a new scheduler and PivotGrid. We've done improvements for accessibility by introducing new themes, as well as we've done upgrades to our existing widgets and our powerful data grid widget. And then later, Don is going to jump into the SPA framework side of it, as well as the data visualization with our charts and so forth. All right, let's just dive right in. Now, before I start talking about the HTML5 PivotGrid and showing you, let's take a look. Everything I want to show you today will mostly just be all into the demos, because I believe that's really where a lot of people want to experience what is this new thing about. So you yourself can do exactly what I'm doing by going to js.devexpress.com. Now, version 15.1 is available today. You can download it now. Just grab that free trial. Most everything I'll be showing is going to be coming from this js.devexpress.com. If you click this hamburger, click web development, you'll be brought up over to this page. And when you click demos, you can see all the excellent demos that we have available. Now, the sales viewer is very nice. We've had a webinar on that already. But what I'm going to be using is this, the technical demos, aka the widget gallery, as we like to call it. Now, one of the improvements that we've done to the widget gallery is we've added this search box. Now, not only do I love it, but even our devs love this, because we have so many demos that it's just so much easier. Now, this entire website, these demos are all built with DevExtreme, so you are actually experiencing what this site can do. So if I wanted to find, let's say, the new PivotGrid, I can just start typing pivot, and it brings it right up. Now, speaking of the PivotGrid, this is a new widget that we are introducing with this release. Now, a PivotGrid is really an excellent control for multi-dimensional analysis, and one of its key functions is to display summaries. So we took our knowledge of building excellent user interface controls for other platforms like WPF, ASP, WinForms, and so forth, and brought it over to what we know to give you the most useful features, the most necessary features that are built directly into it. So for example, a good pivot grid, a good pivot table, is able to summarize data quickly and powerfully and give you a good visual element that helps your end users understand what they're looking at. So for example, here, I'm looking at sales amount by region. So in a normal data grid, I only have rows and columns, but a pivot grid allows me a lot more control. So for example, here I've got the continents on the left, and I've got the years at the top here that shows me what the sales amount was per that continent. But I can do much more than that, and that is I can start digging in. So now when I open up 2013, I've got the 4 quarters. If I want to dig into the second quarter, I've got the applicable months that are being used for that. And each time as I do that, these summaries are being updated dynamically. They are happening directly on the client side. So you can see not only is the pivot grid visually beautiful, it is also powerful. It is able to quickly give you accurate summaries directly. Now, what's more is, as I expand these rows, or I can even, let's say, use the context menu to expand all of these rows, you can see that when I start running out of real estate, I get these beautiful scroll bars. Now, these are the same scroll bars we've been using in our other widgets. We first introduced them in the data grid. I'm a big fan of them. Why? Because they are really very, how do you say, they don't hinder the UI in any way. So when I mouse over, I get a small visual indication that, hey, there's this scroll bar here. And when I need to grab it and I put my mouse over it, I'm able to grab it and move around in it. So it is a very nice way where I can simply grab, and as you can see, I can move up, down, in any direction, even though I've grabbed only the bottom one. So it is touch-friendly, like all DevExtreme widgets as well. So what's also really nice is that not only can we expand and collapse using this top header, I can, let's say, collapse everything, I can come over here, collapse all that, go back to the default view, but I can also use it to sort. So let's say I want to sort by region. So now, or I want to sort by city. So I'm now sorting by region and city, but I can also remove all the sorting altogether. And one of the features I really like is, giving the power to the end users. Because this pivot grid already allows them to analyze in multiple dimensions, they can go further and say, well, I want a different view altogether. Well, you let them choose this field chooser option. So this field chooser, when I right-click on a context menu here, I get this beautiful pop-up. Now, this pop-up is a way that the end user can decide what is used and where it is displayed. So, for example, the data field that we're using to summarize is the sales amount. Now, I could use the amount if I choose. Now, as you can see, I can just simply bring that in here by dragging and dropping. The sales amount works better, so I'll keep it for now. But I can also decide. So right now, as you can see, we'll take a look at, for example, I got 43,620. Now, what happens if I flip things around? Let's say I don't want to use date as the column value. I want to use it in the field value. So I want to flip around the countries and the dates that I'm using for row and column. I can do that easily by simply dragging and dropping that. Now, as soon as I do, you can see I've got still the exact same values. The summaries are still accurate. They're being updated. But I've easily done that, and I've done this all at runtime on the client side. Now, I can go further and say, well, listen, I'm not even actually using country inside of the display here, but I can bring it into my filter fields and use it to filter out values I don't want. So let's say I only want to look at values from Argentina and Australia. So I can do that, and as soon as I do, my UI is updated as well. So it's a very powerful widget, and it is designed to work on larger displays like tablets and desktops. Now, it also goes further because I mentioned everything that we're showing here is working on the client side, and it works very well. We've tested this with several amounts of data on the client side. So as you can see here, I've got a ton of data here, and it performs very nicely. But what if you've got, let's say, millions of rows? Well, in that case, you don't really want to start bringing that over into especially a local data source, based on the device the person's running at, what kind of data network they're on. It could really affect performance. So what I recommend is, when you have tons of data, that you consider using an OLAP. So not only does this PivotGrid support all the standard data sources, working with RESTful services or a local data source, we also specifically added the capability to work with an OLAP data source. Now, an OLAP data source allows you to work with cubes. Now, what cubes are essentially is when you've got something like a data warehouse and you're using what's called SQL Server Analysis Services, you don't have a traditional database that is hierarchical. Instead, the data is flattened so it can be read much faster. And that data is designed to be read. It is not designed for transactions which you're reading and writing. Instead, the data is meant for analysis services, and that's exactly what it's called, SQL Server Analysis Services, so that when you want to figure out what has happened with this historical data, that I can make decisions on. So in this case, what we're doing is we've got a simple OLAP service here. We're using the Microsoft Data Pump to talk to the standard AdventureWorks data edition. Now this cube isn't particularly large in the amount of data it has, but we wanted to really show you that it just depends, that we support XMLA. So whatever cube that you're using, whether it has millions of rows or more, the work is really being done on the server side. And this frees up your UI to still work very nicely and quickly so that it doesn't have to worry, can I crunch all the summaries for those millions of records? That work is being done by the database, which it is designed best to do when it has large amounts of data. So I believe this PivotGrid is so powerful, especially on the client side, and it gives you this option to work with it on the server side. Now, another integration that I really like, and we took this also from our knowledge of our existing way to create PivotGrids, is to help your users visualize the data. They say a picture is 1,000 words, and so this chart, which is one of the DevExtreme charts, has the capability to now use the PivotGrid as a data source. So let's say I expand this row. I get this very nice animation. Now, by the way, you're going to hear me and Don talk a lot about animations and how well something refreshes. Now, if it's not coming across on the webinar, you know, the refresh rates on the webinars are not typically the same as what you might be doing. I highly encourage you to go to js.devexpress.com and experience these demos yourself. But I really love the fact that I can expand a row, I can expand a column, and I get this information updated automatically. And these are beautiful client-side charts based on SVG, so I get some nice animations on them. You know, I get mouse tracking and so forth. And more than that, what I really like is that we've added this other feature that also allows you to change the PivotGrid by using the field chooser as a standalone widget. So you saw me right-click and bring up the field chooser. But what you can also do, you can display the field chooser as a separate widget alongside the PivotGrid. Now what's really nice about this is they can still do all the great things about choosing the data field, setting a filter, or moving around the category and the column fields, but they can do it as a visual cue that's there. Now, so if you have a dedicated view where you say, this view is only for the PivotGrid, where I've got a chart, you could maybe even consider a similar thing where you display the standalone field chooser. So, very nice feature built right in. Now, a couple of other features I want to mention is, like all DevExtreme widgets, this also supports right to left. And there's a simple property to do that. So if you're curious about that, you can just take a look at our online demos. And like I said, if you're ever curious about how do I do something, just come to this demo, start using this, and you can come to the demo specifically. We're hooked up right to the online documentation, so you can see exactly how we enable right to left and all that good stuff. Okay, so now let's take a, and as I mentioned, like all DevExtreme widgets, it also supports mobile touch. Now we've also got a new HTML5 scheduler widget. Now this widget provides you 4 built-in views, including day, week, month, and work week. So let's take a look at the new scheduler, and I'm just gonna type scheduler, and here we can see those 4 views. Now occasionally I'll switch between the dark theme and the light theme. You know, recently we were looking at some Google Analytics, and a lot of people actually like the dark theme. And I think it's a nice contrast anyway. So let's take a look at the work week view. Now, well, let's start with the month view. The month view gives us the standard view here, right? So I've got the entire month of May here, and I can see all of my appointments. Now, the scheduler not only allows you to display appointments, but like a good scheduler, it also allows you to manage resources. So it works with 2 sets of data. Here we've got the appointment data, and we've got the resources data. And in this case, resources happen to be the people. As you can see, I can even assign specific colors and IDs to each of the appointments as well as the resources, so that whenever one changes, the UI reflects that automatically, so I can quickly see which appointment belongs to which resource. Now, not only that, I can go to, let's say, the week view, and I can see at a quick glance which appointments are happening. So in this case, I'm actually starting the week view with Monday, but you can customize each one of these views. So let's say the week view has all 7 days. The work week has 5 days. But if your week starts on work week starts on a Saturday, goes till Wednesday, you can customize that as well. Now, We've also got the day view that shows you only those items for the day. Now, again, this is a larger user interface, and I don't recommend using it on a phone. I recommend from a tablet and up. If you do have to use it on a mobile device, I would say if you've got something like an iPhone 6, the day view would probably work okay for you. But in general, my recommendation is stick with something larger like a tablet. Now, let's take a look again at the work week view. And what's really nice about this is not only, again, is this a completely client-side widget, but it has some great user features built right in. And the feature ability to drag and drop and change an appointment is built right there. Now, as you can see, I've easily moved this around. Now, again, we are using a new widget here. Now, I can also resize it to change the appointment. So we've got a lot of beautiful features built directly in, so the end user can expect this. Now, if you're end users, and they likely have, they probably use something like Microsoft Outlook or use one of the other things like Google Calendar and so forth. We have taken our inspiration of Office 365, Google Calendar, those kind of things, and built some great features directly in here. So, for example, changing appointments. The ability to click on an appointment and bring up this quick dialog that lets me delete it or open the appointment. And when I open the appointment, I get this modal dialog that allows me all of the features. So here, I can take a look and say, okay, well, I can change the subject line, or I can change its start time. Now, as I'm going and showing this stuff, I'm going to mention that we added new features to our existing controls as well, and so I'll introduce those as well. But for example, I can go into the start date here, and this date navigator gives me our calendar control, which we actually added some cool new features to. But I can even use, let's say, keyboard support. So I can go around, and I'm just using the keyboard here to say, let's go into June. Actually, let's go back into May and keep it May 26th. And what's interesting is it's got some logic built into it. So as you can see, the end date here is May 26th. If I change the date to May 27th and select OK, you can see the end date. If I change the start date, the end date is updated automatically. Now, you can see we've also got a little time editor here as well. So as I change the time, it updates as well. I can also add a description. So we can say upgrade or something like that, and I can set it to an all-day appointment. So you have the option to change this to an all-day appointment. And as I do, it also has some logic built into it, so it removes the need to display time. So if I change this to, back and to not an all-day appointment, I get my time values back. Now, we've also added the capability to turn this into a recurring appointment. So here, I can come in here and say, well, I want to make this daily, weekly, where I can select the days of the week, monthly, or even yearly. And I can also select the occurrence. So if this happens, whether this occurs daily or every other day and so forth. And I can also choose how many occurrences it happens for. So I can decide when it ends. I can say ended after one occurrence or several, or on a specific date. And you can assign it to one resource, several resources, or keep it to a single resource. It's got a beautiful user interface that your end users will intuitively understand because it's based on items that on interfaces we've built in the past. All right, now let's take a look. And again, what I really like is we've gone not just for the user interface, we've made some great smarts built into it. And for example, we've added the ability to bind to any DevExtreme data source and also do field mapping. So let's say you've got something like Google Calendar. Well, you've got the ability to integrate with just about anything out there. So for example, here I'm using my not my specific Google Calendar. We set it up with one Google Calendar, and what it does is I've got some appointments on this Google Calendar. So I can now use the DevExtreme scheduler to manage my Google Calendar. So in case Google's not allowing me to, I can just talk to their API. So if I've got my public key and calendar key, then I can use it. But what if the fields that Google's using are different? Well, we provide you a map function, and map function says, oh, here's my local field, here's the field on the server. So if you've already got an existing RESTful service that provides appointments and resources, you can map to them automatically. And like I said, we give you this function that is very extensible. Now, I really like this feature. Now, we've also given this ability to work with multiple resources. So, for example, here I've got for resources, I've got two types of resources: high priority and low priority, and that allows me to group the resources. And therefore, I've got two calendars. So I've got a calendar for low priority and a calendar for high priority. So it's a very flexible scheduler widget that also supports access with keyboard. And we've got ARIA support, which I'll be talking about as well, which is an important accessibility, as well as right-to-left support. All right, now let's take a look at the HTML5 data grid. We've done improvements to the DevExpress, DevExtreme data grid. Now, you can simply find this by going to the data grid, and actually, I can just type in grid here, and let's take a look at the standard grid demos here. Now, we've added a feature that allows you to export. Now, you might be saying, finally. Well, absolutely. We've heard your feedback. We understood this is a very necessary feature, and I'm happy to say it is now built in. And what's amazing, it actually works completely on the client side, 99% of the time. So what does that mean? Well, let's first take a look at the feature, and then I'll explain that 99% thing. So right now, when I click export here, I have the ability to say Excel file. And when I do that, I get a Excel file pushed to me from Chrome directly. And when I do that, Chrome opens it directly into my local Excel file where I can keep working in here and so forth. Now, what's more is, let's say I've got certain fields that I want to choose. So let's say I choose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fields. I can say only export selected rows. So you have a couple of options to export either all the rows or only the selected rows. Now, that is all very nice. And most browsers, when you push this to them, will export directly. There's a few browsers out there that unfortunately we needed to specifically set some headers on. So for those, we provide a bit of a small code that allows you to manage that. So for example, if you're using IIS, you can just create a simple non-visual HTTP handler that helps set those headers. And if you're not using IIS, don't worry. If you're using something like Apache, we've got code for you. And if you're using some web server that we're not aware of and you don't find the code for it, just contact us. We'll help you figure it out. But what's great is this feature is going to work with most use cases out there. We've tested it with a lot of browsers, and it works fantastic. So it's finally there, and I'm happy to say you can start using it today. Now, we've also added the ability to filter using the header. Now, typically, we've had this option for what we call the filter row. And the filter row essentially is this, and it's built right in, and I can do things like give me all the records for Clark, and it's going to automatically filter and get only those records. But we've added this new option called header filter that goes beyond that. So I'll hide the filter row for here a second here. What the header filter does, it gives you this nice little icon. When you click on it, it brings up this little dialog that shows a checklist box of the unique values of the column. So now I can say, you know what, bring me up only records for Harv and Jim. And when I do that, it automatically updates that. Now, what I really like, and this is a beautiful feature of the header filter, is that we've integrated one of our other controls in here to make it even smarter. So for example, if I go and filter order date, instead of getting a checklist box of 4/10/2015 and values like dates like this, we've added actually our tree view. So our tree view says, oh, here's what I'm finding. You've got a few values for January in here. It's not showing me all the values, it's still only showing me unique values. But what's great about this is, using this approach, I can say, you know what, give me everything for January and February. I can select a range of dates, and it still only brings up those values that are applicable. It's a beautiful feature. You can use it alongside with the filter view, and it's available today. Now, one other feature we've added is the ability to set fixed columns, and this is really nice because it's very customizable as well. And so if I scroll over to the right, keep an eye on the employee column there. The employee column is not moving at all. fact, let's make this a little bit smaller, and we can see the employee column does not move at all. What if I wanted to make, let's say, birth date fixed as well? Well, it's very easy. You can simply come in here and say, well, let's just copy this one attribute here and add it here, and now as I apply it, and by the way, because it's all HTML5 with the demos, you can play with the markup, styles, the data, the code, and the demos are updated directly in the browser. But now that we made both columns fixed, you can see birth date and employee are there. But you can go further. What if you wanted to pin birth date not on the left side, but on the right side? Well, you can do that. We offer an option here called fixed position, and simply set it to right. Now, when I apply this, you can see birthday is on the left, employees on the right, and as I scroll over, both columns are fixed. All right, now let's take a look at a new theme that we've added in this release called a compact theme. Now, sometimes when you hear the word compact, you think, oh, this is applicable for mobile. It's actually the opposite. The compact theme is designed to work when you're using this more for the desktop. And again, as I mentioned at the top of the webinar, we've done a lot of work so that DevExtreme is, I believe, a fantastic library now that you can start using with things like Angular and Bootstrap and so forth. So the compact theme allows you to use items for desktops. Now on a desktop, you're going to use a mouse. On a mobile tablet and so forth, you're going to want to probably use your finger. So for a finger, you will have larger fonts, larger touch targets, bigger paddings. When you've got mouse precision, you don't need all those things. So the compact theme allows you to optimize for a different type of pointer interface. Now, if we take a look at that demo earlier called the PivotGrid, here we can see this is optimized more for a touch device. My paddings are pretty large and so forth. But here you can see it's a little bit smaller, and so this is optimized more for a mouse because I know if this is a larger widget, I've got a bigger view. Most likely I'm going to be running this on a large tablet or on a desktop device. So the compact theme now is available in 15.1. Now we've gone further and also added a high contrast theme. Now, this is actually for users with accessibility issues. So, for example, there are some users that maybe their eyesight is not as good as it used to be, and so forth. Even if your designer's got all these nice gradients, they don't care. What they want to be able to do is focus in on certain values and certain items. Well, that's what a contrast theme helps them to do. And I'm happy to say we've not just got a generic contrast theme, we've got a compact contrast theme as well that essentially highlights only the necessary features. So this is available in 15.1, and it is an accessibility feature. Now, speaking of accessibility, we have added support for WAI-ARIA. Now, I wrote a blog post about it, and I think probably looking at the blog post is the best way to explain it. What WebAria is a web accessibility initiative that was started by the W3 org many years ago, and I think they finally got to version 1.0 in March of last year or something like that. But it essentially is for Accessible Rich Internet Application Suite. That's what ARIA stands for. And what that means is, when we started creating all these AJAX sites where DOM elements are updated on the fly, that is not helpful for accessibility, because accessibility users could be users who are blind. And so blind people do use the internet. The way they use it is they use the keyboard because they don't necessarily use a mouse, and they are able to have the screen be read to them by screen readers. And the way they do that is by reading special HTML attributes on DOM elements. And so that is what the web access initially standardized and said this is the kind of attributes you'll provide on the DOM element so that assistive technologies like special keyboards and screen readers are able to work with them. And I'm happy to say, this should absolutely be a concern for you. It's a good part of the population that we should not ignore. But more than that, I believe it's also a necessity in a lot of enterprise applications that this be available to them. And I'm happy to say with version 15.1 of DevExtreme, it is available today. All right, we've also added a tree view mode now. A virtual mode for our tree view. So let's take a look at that. So if we go to preview, you can find a virtual mode demo of it here, and I like this feature. So actually, let's take a look at the mobile theme. And I'm going to show you the Android. Google has done a lot of good work lately, and I like their material design stuff, which Don's going to talk about a little later. So what happens is, by the way, if it seems a little slow, we have deliberately slowed this demo down just so you can see the little loading icon. What happens is, if you've got a preview with a lot of nodes underneath it, you don't want to load that all up in the initial load. Every page speed and Google and a lot of these sites says keep your views fast. And to keep the views fast, you want to keep them light. And by keeping them light is you don't want to preload the DOM with a bunch of elements. So if you've got a lot of nodes in your preview, don't load them right away. Use this virtual mode approach. And use it only when you have a ton of things. So in this case, I don't have to load these items. The items for this node will only be loaded when I click this dropdown. So now it's going to the server, grabbing all of these items. Now it's not going to grab items underneath this until I actually click on that node. So it's a very nice feature that is available, and you can, like I said, for the desktop or for the mobile, it's fully supported. And as you can see, we've got that nice loading icon built in as well. All right, let's move on and take a look at the HTML of calendar. Now, I'll quickly mention this, but we saw most of this in the scheduler, and that is that we've got the ability now to set a view. Now, if you're not finding a specific demo, I would just keep typing, but remember, there's also categories up here as well. So the calendar view allows us to set, let's say, something like the zoom level to year, decade, century, and that's nice. Typically, I find the month view the best, and letting the end user control it, they can just still control the zoom by clicking on this top toolbar. And then they can select, hey, I can move around with the mouse and select this stuff. But again, they can set that. Now, we've also added a custom template for the cells. So if they want, and they want that little icon in there as well, they can easily do that. So let's say you're building a weather app or a weather widget for your desktop. Well, you can add anything you want in this because it is now, you can now make it a template. All right. Let's move on, and we've got upgrades to our file uploader. And the file uploader now provides asynchronous uploading. Again, this is another one of those features that I am happy with, and that is the ability to upload using asynchronous uploading. Now, asynchronous uploading is important because it does not, asynchronous means that it's going to occur and at the same time without blocking you. So for example, here I can say I'm going to allow multiple uploads, but when I go here and select files, I'll select a couple of files here, and when I upload, you can see I've got a progress bar, and it did not block my interface at all. But I can go a little bit further, and you can see that I've got a drop target here. So I can come in here, select a few files, and drop them. And as I do, I got that beautiful upload interface, and that is built directly into it. And again, this is one of those obvious UI things that the end users just grasp right away. It's what they would expect it to work like, and I really like this feature. All right, it's available now. So let's move on and take a look at font icons. Now, font icons, just to give you a quick background, we've improved our icon library and supply the icons as a font now. This makes the icons instantly customizable, and you can, which also means though you can use third-party font icons, for example from Bootstrap or Font Awesome or Ionic. And the reason is, in the past, DevExtreme icons were bitmap images before 15.1. Bitmap images don't scale well. They lose quality when they're scaled up. So what we've done is we've reworked them so that they are fonts now, and fonts can be styled with CSS, including their color, size, etc. Because fonts icons are vectors. This means that they look well even in high-density pixel displays. So, for example, this is the I just did a file new demo here. That's all. I'm sorry, not file new. I brought up the kitchen sink demo, and I just brought it up from our local demos here, which you can find under users public documents, DevExtreme demos. When you install DevExtreme, all the demos are installed for you locally, and I just brought up this kitchen sink demo in Visual Studio. You can even bring it up in Sublime if you want. So here, I've got a small icon, and I just want to show you real quick that you can jump over and bring over something like Font Awesome. So I'm just referencing Font Awesome there, and instead of using, let's say, the standard icon, I can use something like, since FIFA has been in the news lately, let's use the soccer ball icon. And just to show you for fun, it's very customizable. And now I've got a Font Awesome icon that I pulled in. And Font Awesome, if you're not familiar, has a ton of great icons that you can start taking a look at today. So just, go to Font Awesome on GitHub. You'll find all of these icons. If you want to use the Visa icon, Stripe, and so forth, they're all available to you today. All right, excellent feature, built right in. We've also added the ability to do mask editing on our text box. So you can not only define a preset, you can also control sort of validation, and that is you can define what letters it accepts. Now I still recommend you check validation, but at least you can have a slight more measure of control over what the end user enters. So if you don't want them to enter certain letters in here, for example, for a phone number field, you can define that out. All right. We've also added the gallery. Now the gallery is nice because they can adapt to any size. Now I'll just show you a very quick demo of this, and gallery allows you to, let's just take a look at the All right, so let me bring up the demo center here, and we'll take a look at this Realtor demo. Now, the Realtor demo, we'll take a look at it in the tablet, has a gallery a widget built right into it, and that is this thing, And when I click on a specific item, the gallery comes up here, and I'm able to scroll and so forth. But what happens is, when you go to a mobile view, you're running out of real estate. So what the gallery view does, it automatically adjusts to the current screen size. And it says, oh, I can still swipe and do this, but since I've ran out of real estate, I'm not able to do that. So now the gallery adapts to that. And we've also added support for paged data source. So that's available as well. And finally, we've added support for a double-click event. This was actually a user-requested feature. Initially we were like, who's going to double-click on the mobile? Well, there's all sorts of scenarios out there, and it's not just for mobile, it's also for the desktop. So it makes perfect sense, and it's available to you today with DevExtreme 15.1, whether you're using devices like a mouse, pen, or a touchscreen. All right, with that, I'll hand it over to Don.
Thanks, Mehul. Those were some awesome features. And let me first grab the screen. And continue with some more cool features. I will start with the data visualization controls. We have been doing some improvements on the charts, and especially the tooltip. And let me show you a little demo, because what we have done, we have been adding HTML support inside the tooltip. So that means that if I hover over one of those charts, you can put virtually anything you like inside the tooltip, because you're allowed to use markup now. And it means you can insert an image, or you can do a bit of styling with bold and italic, or just regular fonts. And yeah, that's just a really nice feature to make your charts look better. And especially if you want to have some additional information, you can highlight it inside the tooltip. So it's very easy to use, especially not really different as the previous versions, except that you can now insert the HTML markup inside of the tooltip. So a really nice feature. What we have also been doing is we have been making some changes to the positioning of the tooltip. With the previous version, the tooltip would always be displayed inside the boundaries of the chart control. And if you have a lot of information to show, or you have a really small chart, yeah, then you would run into problems. And we have now changed the tooltip that it is able to position itself outside the chart, And I can show you that by just hovering over here, and you'll see it pop over the title of this demo. So again, also a really nice feature for the charts and the information that you want to display. Another thing that has slightly to do with the chart widget is the range selector. We have been creating a lightweight range selector, a separate widget now. In the previous version, it was like combined with the chart, and well, we decided to make like a separate widget. So you can now use that for all kinds of ranges that you want to select. And let me also show you a little demo of that, because it works so nice. It's really natural. So here I've got like the range selector, and as you can see, in this case we need to select a house price range. And I can just move them up and down, both of them, as you would expect from a range selector. And it goes all really smooth. And well, what's really nice is that if the two bounce to each other, and I keep my mouse down, it will just get the other marker and it will nicely move up. And as soon as I hit the end, you'll see the tooltip will be inside of the control, so it will not go out, and it will still be displayed nicely. And also watch the little marker underneath the tool tip. So I think this is a very good looking range selector. And there is some more functionality inside this range selector. So I've got another demo. And as Mehul was doing, I already loaded up the widgets from the widget gallery. So I am basically having the same demo center here. But I've got a range selector for date time scale, and this particular example allows you to select your holiday that you want to take up. And as most of the people in this world, we only have like a certain amount of days that we are able to take vacation. So to convert that to this range selector, you should only be allowed to select the number of days inside the range, and that is done really nice, because if I move up the starting point and I will then move up the end point, you'll see at a certain amount it turns red, and this is apparently not good. So if I release it, it will just go down to the maximum position, because we are only allowed to take up 1 month of holiday in this case. So again, a really great feature which will improve the end user experience when selecting these kind of things. Really nice. Another thing that I also love to show, because it's just so well done, is this demo. And this is also the range selector in combination with a chart. And you'll see that the chart is in the background of this range selector. And well, the selection is being highlighted, and everything outside of the range is being dimmed. So this is all being done in your browser, and it looks really nice, and it works really smooth. So another example of this range selector widget. We have also been working on the vector map, and the vector map is again a really nice control which allows you to have an overview of a certain area. So if I switch over to that demo, in this case I will have a map of the world, and that is out of the box delivered by the DevExtreme library, because you only have to say inside, if you take a look at the code, map data is map.sources.world, and we draw that world map for you. And we've been putting a couple of markers inside this map. And with the previous version, whenever the data which represents one of those dots changes, that would cause the entire map to be redrawn. And because of the performance improvements that we have been doing on this particular widget, that is not the case anymore. So this results in a much smoother user experience, because it doesn't flicker in any way. It will just only redraw that marker, and the rest is left alone. And yeah, that's again also a really nice feature. And I'm now going to talk a bit about the DevExtreme mobile portion of the DevExtreme library. And well, with 15.1, we have naturally also been upgrading our Cordova version. And we are now supporting Cordova version 3.7. And well, that's a good thing, because in the previous version there were a couple of security issues which might occur in some scenarios. And they are all fixed in the Cordova library, so you will not encountering them anymore. And another nice feature that has been introduced in the Cordova 3.7 version is NPM support. And I'll show you the web page of NPM just to give you a quick impression. What it basically does is it is a package manager for JavaScript libraries. And Cordova version 3.7 has now support for Cordova plugins hosted on the NPM platform. So that means for you that it is quite easy to upgrade certain plugins and to include certain plugins, because you can compare this like NuGet for C# and Visual Studio, but then for JavaScript. And I will not go too much into depth right now, and we might do a webinar on it to show you the power of this NPM based package management. But in case you're familiar with it, yeah, you can use that now with DevExtreme. Another thing that we have been doing is we have upgraded our themes. We are now shipping DevExtreme with iOS 8 and Android 5. And that means that if you upgrade your existing applications to 15.1, and you will have the iOS 8 look and feel, as you can see, and you will also have the material design used in Android. And yeah, the only thing that you need to do for that is create a new application with DevExtreme 15.1 or upgrade an existing one. We have also taken a look at the older themes, and we have decided to drop them, since in general people want to have the newer look and feel anyway, so we don't ship the older iOS 6 and Android 4 themes anymore with 15.1. This does not mean that you cannot run DevExtreme applications on an older device or on a device with an older OS, obviously, but we will just give you like the latest and freshest look and feel available right now. Another thing together with the theme improvements is we have been taking a look at our performance of the mobile applications, and we have included quite some performance improvements on the UI rendering of a DevExtreme application. And that means that we are caching certain views on a very smart way, and we check if it needs to be refreshed, etc., etc. And this results in a much better performance and a much better user experience. And this also allowed us to put in a couple of nice UI effects, which you can find in native apps as well. And I will try to show it to you. In case you don't see any effects at all, that's because of the webinar software. And in that case, well, I would urge you anyway to download DevExtreme and test it out locally, and you will see how nice it looks. So let me switch over to one of my demos, which I already loaded up. And in this case, we have the iOS 8 look, and I can just click a bit around. And I will also show you the Android material design look by switching over to Android here. You'll have the same application, but as you can see, it's now in the new look and feel of Android, and it behaves just the same. And you saw it already. If I click this button, you see that something is, yeah, some effects are in here, and also this kind of stuff is all being done now in the new DevExtreme version 15.1. I'll also show you another application which has even nicer effects, and that will be our DX Skate app, which is also available in the demos folder. And this one looks exactly the same on Android as well as iPhone, because we have done some additional styling to make that the situation. But as soon as I click one of the tabs, and I will select the deck and check. I hope that you saw how nice this list is showing up. So let me go back and show another one. And all these kind of nice little effects are just available to you if you upgrade your existing app to 15.1 or build a new app in 15.1. And this is out of the box functionality right now. So really cool. And you also saw in Mehul demos now and then that there were some nifty animations. So yeah, this is looking really cool, and I like this very much. I also like to mention our Courier app, and in case you're not familiar with DevExtreme at all or with the Courier app, let me quickly explain what it does. We have deployed 3 native apps on Google Play Store, on the iTunes, and we have also posted this app now on Windows Phone Store since 15.1. And this app makes it really easy to test your mobile application on a real device, because what you saw is we have this simulator, and this is just running in my browser. As soon as I hit Ctrl F5 in Visual Studio, this will show up, and I will have a good impression on how it looks on a real device. But if you want to have a perfect experience, then you should use the Courier app. You need to install this on a real device. And when you start up the Courier app, you can scan the QR code, which is right here. And if the device picks it up, it will show you the app just like you're seeing right now, but then on the real device without deploying anything to any store at all. So also a really nice feature. And now we support Windows Phone Store, so you can test it on a Windows Phone as well. And yeah, because we were working on the Courier app anyway, we have made a couple of improvements there as well. In case you want to use phone gap features like hardware sensors or geolocation, or you want to use some iOS OS specific features, you need the Courier library for it in combination with phone gap. And we have been making a couple of changes that as soon as you load this application in Courier, we will make sure that you are using the actual PhoneGap API on the device, so you can test the hardware sensors more easy, and you don't need to do some tricks, because if you are using it to test it on your desktop, we cannot load in the entire Courier library because of the desktop. So we have been making some checks inside the Courier app, like, okay, we are now running on a real device, so we will link in the actual plugins for this application, and that makes life even simpler for testing. So again, another great feature for hybrid applications. The last thing that I'd like to show you is, well, it looks like a small improvement on the theme builder that we have, but it's actually something which is also pretty convenient. And before I'm going to show it to you, let me first talk about a little bit about how a DevExtreme application is set up concerning navigation. Because if you have like the desktop application, it has different navigation as a mobile one. And well, you have seen the mobile navigation already, but I'm happy to show you again. If I go to a regular application, then we'll have a slide out feature here. But if I go to a desktop version, which I've set up here as well, you will have the navigation on top. And with the theme builder, you can easily restyle the entire look and feel of all the widgets and stuff But it's a bit difficult to style over these ones, and that is because they are defined in the layout of an application. And yeah, a layout, let me show you that in Visual Studio. I have opened a really standard one, and let me go to the folders here. Let me close down all the documents. They are not interesting. But if I go to my solution, you will have a folder inside the desktop version which is called Layouts. And inside this desktop subfolder, you will have everything concerning the layout of the application that you're developing. But for a multi-channel mobile application, we have several layouts, because you can have the slide out menu, but you could also use the top and bottom navigation, etc. So for that, we have defined a number of layouts. And what is particularly not possible with the older theme builder is the customization of the navigation right here. And let me show you how this theme builder works quickly. This is the theme builder, in case you haven't seen it before. And this allows you to quickly redo the look and feel of the controls. So I can just go here and select a main color. So I'll grab some bluish. I hit apply, and on the right side you'll see an immediate impression on how it's going to look. I can also pick an accent color. Well, because I'm from the Netherlands, it must be orange. So let me pick a bit more orange, like this. And you will immediately see what effect the accent color has on the widgets. And I could also select a state color. So if I pick another color which will be pretty accented as well, then you'll see this change as well. And then if you want to change it any further, you can go to advanced theming, and you'll have all the different elements here which you can restyle. The thing that we have been adding to change this menu navigation, what you see on top, we have put it under the layout section, and this is a new one. And we have only implemented the 2 versions which actually have those navigation items, because as said before, the mobile versions, they don't have like a top menu, or they use it in a different way. So now you're able to change over the desktop menu as well. By just clicking this desktop layout, I can now pick another color for the specific element, and you'll see that it will change nicely. And also, yeah, this is just to make your life a bit easier when you have to fit your application into the design, into the web design where it needs to run in. And yeah, now you can just export the CSS and put it in your own application, and you'll have this look and feel. So another feature which makes development just a bit easier for you. And yeah, that was everything that we had to show for DevExtreme 15.1. Mehul, do you have anything to add?
Yes, thank you very much, Don. And you know, I just want to quickly recap. Again, we have new widgets that are great for tablet, desktop, scheduler, PivotGrid, theme upgrades. You saw the new compact theme. We have those accessibility features, support for ARIA, data grid improvements, widget improvements. The spa stuff, you know, Don, as you mentioned, like I said, I'm impressed. You know, I'm a big iOS fan, but I'm super impressed with the Google Material Design stuff, especially the work that's been done in this release. So I would recommend you guys to also take a look at the mobile version. So you can actually take a look at our demos, and there's a QR code, as Don mentioned, that you can scan and experience it on your local device. So some of you have been asking about how that works. Now, thank you again, because, you know, most of the questions, Don, we address them, and that's because we've got the actual devs. We've got the team leads, the devs on this webinar, and that's another great reason to join these webinars. So there isn't anything specific, and you know, we've gone a couple minutes over, so I'll simply say thanks very much. Keep us in mind if you are starting a new project with any framework, and if you've got an existing project, again, as I mentioned at the top of the webinar, we've done a lot of great work to say, okay, if you whatever you're doing and you just need a special widget for PivotGrid or a data grid or a chart, you can do that with DevExtreme. For example, for Angular, we've been providing directives. We actually have project templates. So definitely take a look, and thank you again. With that, I'll hand it back to Amanda.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. All right, everybody. All of our 15.1 launch webinars are up and ready to watch on our YouTube channel. I posted that link in the chat box, and you can also find them at devexpress.com/webinars. And that is it for this one. Thank you so much to Mehul and Don. Thank you all for joining us. And, of course, thank you for choosing DevExpress. Bye-bye.